I want to democratize access to AI. And the way I do that is fixing the contextual problem so everyone can take the power of AI and wrap it into their organization or their solopreneurship or whatever it is. So all of a sudden that massive power is working for them.
Welcome to Playbook Broken, the show where we interrogate what's no longer working in marketing, sales, growth, and AI, and get real about what might work next. Playbook Broken is brought to you by the Martech Conference, a free online experience happening this September and November. Visit martech.org to learn more. Today's guest is someone who didn't just rewrite his own playbook, he built the tools to throw it out entirely. Nate St. Pierre is the founder of Youbots.ai, a creative strategist turned AI builder who's helped everyone from Harley Davidson to Cinnabon to the Motley Fool and beyond. And now he's building bots for screenwriters, SMBs, and businesses. In a world where AI is either an existential threat or a silver bullet, Nate brings a lot of nuance. I think you're going to see that in the conversation. We're talking about the blurry lines between art, ownership, and automation, why sanctioned or not, AI is the new creative partner. And let's get into it. Nate, welcome to Playbook Broken.
Hey, good to be here.
Thanks for joining.
I just heard you say where AI is an existential threat versus a silver bullet.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That black or white thinking I see all the time with so many people. They're either terrified of it or they think it's God's answer to everything. And it's like the answer is so much in the middle. And it's very dependent, situational.
I think that's great. Intentionally kind of being a little bit black and white about it, because I do think that people put it in one bucket or another. And I don't think that's fair to us as workers, employees, creative people. It's also not fair to the technology. It puts all sorts of expectations on both sides of it that become very tricky to manage.
I only got into AI, gosh, it would have been November 2023. So not even 2 years ago. And then I took 6 months off. So like I've only technically been in this field for like a year. And I only got interested in it when you could start creating your own thing because I'm a builder and a creator. And all the time before that, I was just kind of like, looks like kind of fun stuff people are messing around with. But until I can do something with it, I'm really not interested. And like, that's my opinion as a creator. But then there are so many people who are more, to not use a disparaging term, but more Luddite about it, which is like, I don't like change. I don't want to learn anything new. I don't want to see the future. I'm scared of this or that, and then there's the power users and the early adopters who are like, I think you're a little more like this than me for sure. You're like, oh, checking out all the new things. And it's like, I think one of my superpowers is kind of the power of focus and saying no to like all these new things and like focusing on the things that I think will impact me or my life or my career or help others or whatever that is. Because this stuff is changing so fast.
There's a lot of places to go from there. What was your first AI tool that you just built for yourself, just to be like, oh, wow, that's how this works? Did it spark Youbots?
I've only really built two things, and one of them turned into an exit, and one of them is my current business. The first thing I built, so this was back in November of 23, like I said, this was when OpenAI had just released custom GPTs. You could build your own custom GPTs. And I was like, oh, cool. Let me see what I can do with this. And I don't know if you can see it much in this lighting, but these are all 1950s and 60s sci-fi paperbacks. I love fiction. Writing, I've made my living writing on the web in some way, shape, or form for 20 years. I'm not a fiction writer or an author, but I live and write and work on the web, and I edit my stuff plus other people's stuff as well. So I just started building tools for world building and expansion for fiction universes just for fun. I rapidly found out, first of all, I think I have a really good background in it because my career has been, I was a front end web designer and developer for the early part of my career, then became a agency strategist and a brand strategist and a CMO. So with those two things, coding, developing where technology and architecture, and then human language reading and writing and UX UI, I think I have a really good convergence of skills to be able to do AI really well. And that's been proven, I guess, over the past year or so. I did those world building tools, which were super fun. My philosophy was, in a professional sense, writers want to write. That's why they do what they do. For me, I wanted to build tools that could illuminate the world around them in their fiction, right? And it's like, I want them to write, but I want them to be able to take stubs of ideas and quickly imagine them out. And not only just for creativity and imagination's sake, but also for function. I had one person, this actually turned into client work. This is where I'm kind of going with this. I rapidly became like these tools. I built a suite of like 5 or 6 or 7 tools within this suite, and I called it Tailmaker. And then the more I shared with some people online or whatever, I got picked up by an author studio in New York to be a developmental editor for some of their writers, because with the tools that I had created, a writer who was facing writer's block, or how do I, like, one of my clients, I ended up doing this for paid work within a few months. One of my clients had this whole, he had a short story that he was turning into a novel, but it was like this future post-apocalyptic thing, but it was all like mushroom powered. But using the tools, it's like, not only can we just do creativity, but it's like, in a real future post-apocalyptic world, how could mushrooms feasibly power this? Are there any, parallels to modern stuff? So anyway, can quickly, with me as a facilitator editor using the tools I've built and them as the driver, get to scientific, pseudoscientific stuff, right? Well, I mean, like, you can explore and expand in ways that make sense quickly and explore all these different avenues so that you're free to, like, choose the architecture that you like, the story that you like, or the connections here. And then you write to those, right? So with all that, that became a side gig for me, a developmental editor for authors. And from there, it became screenwriters in Hollywood. So contacts there were like, "Oh, this is, if you could customize this for screenwriters." And I was like, "Hey, that was number 2 on my list. Screenwriters number 2, game developers number 3." So I customized the screenwriter side of it, and I ended up doing developmental editing sessions with writers and directors and producers from big time shows and movies. And I was ingesting their scripts and then working the tools and editing with them in real time. And they were telling me, we don't have anything like in LA right now. We pay hundreds of dollars an hour for developmental editors who give us less and take more time. And so that became side gig number 2.
Also speaks to a bunch of things in terms of the power of, creativity, domain expertise, and some technical knowledge, and the alchemy that we're seeing all around us, because this is happening everywhere. So here's a segment on the show on Playbook Broken. We have different segments that I talk about with the guests in advance a little bit. Each one's sort of a gateway into more elements of a given playbook. Today, we're starting with a playbook breakdown, marketing strategy in the agentic AI era, and how we're adapting. And I think, Nate, just based on what you said, I mean, the question might be a little redundant, but I think it speaks to one side of this I'm personally super interested in. And, we've had 2 or 3 conversations. I've done some demos of Youbot and all that kind of stuff. I'm struck by a couple of things in your perspective. If the creative process is sacred, I believe it is. If that creative process is sacred, what happens when machines start co-writing and co-developing?
Yeah, it's interesting. So someone asked me the other day at a roundtable I was speaking on, like, they asked everyone what they consider their expertise as, and it was beginner, intermediate, and expert in AI. And I was like, I guess expert, although that's not, like, none of us are. We're just trying to figure out, but I do it for a living and I do it all day. So in terms of creativity and using tools to help with that, and there's a fine line, I think, between a nuanced line between using tools to augment and using tools to replace. So one of the ways I like to think about it is, back when 25 years ago, you had Photoshop Suite coming out. Right? And I liken some of my tools to that. It's like a Photoshop Suite for art. They're general tools, but you could say specifically marketing and development tools for creatives and world building and writing. I mean, that's on the Hollywood side, and Youbots is more business oriented, but we're talking marketing and creativity first and marketing second, maybe. But at the beginning is like, you had these artists who are like, hell no, I'm never going to use Photoshop. I'm not going to let a machine do this. I have my easel and my paints and my pencils and my arts, and, like, I'm not going to do it. And I won't compromise my artistry. And, here we are 25 years later. Everyone uses Photoshop for their work, and no one considers them any less of an artist, right?
Yeah.
They still do amazing things, and they can do it on paper if they want, and they do, and it's amazing. They also do it digitally, and it's also amazing. So, like, I'm much more of this technology is not like the sky is falling. It's like these things happen and people change and adapt, and core structures will still be there. The core structure being, if you're an artist, you are an artist, no matter what the tools you use. Now, I guess to your question of, like, it's not specifically your question, but how much is too much? That's an open question, right? Like, for instance, I saw an ad the other day. Like, why would I want to write a full book a day? Why would anyone want to write a full book a day? And it's a book of slop, right? It's terrible. And so that's like the one extreme, right? Just cover everything. We're seeing it in the constant social. And I deleted almost all my socials, and I'm basically on kind of LinkedIn now, just for some business and some fun, but it's like just the constant overwashing of AI content all over the place. And it's like, it's not good. And I've even seen bots having conversations with each other in the comments, and that's even worse, right? So we don't want that. But when it comes to doing my job better, and this is kind of what I care about, it has to have a point. I'm hardly interested in current events. I'm more interested in architecture and structure and core, I'll call them core beliefs. Like for us, we on my small team, 4 people at Youbots, like we've been told for 50 years that the like technological advancements will let us be more human and give us more time and let us do more. Like the robots will do more so that we can do less or do, the things we want, which has been the extreme opposite, right? Like, we're expected to do more with less time and maximize every minute and second and dollar earned, right? So at some point, someone has to say no, make a choice. For us on Ubots, that means we don't work on Wednesdays. We don't work on weekends. We don't work evenings unless there's something urgent or whatever. But like we're shut down on Wednesdays, period, flat out. So for us, our slogan is work less, live more. Like we want to use these tools to do that. So for me, I'm okay with letting the tools augment or take over things that I would have to do anyway, but I can do them smarter, faster, more efficient, better, whatever, and give me back a few minutes in my day to do something and be a human.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think that with all this automation, do you think that we might be re-entering a true age of human creativity, or do you think these tools are so prevalent and so powerful that they just overwhelm? And I don't know, it becomes like human creativity becomes like laser discs. Like there's a few people who still practice it, but like most of us don't.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? And I don't know the answer. You can take this to its conclusion and say, well, with one prompt, someone, AI can now develop a full 2-hour movie that is theater releasable.
Yeah.
Again, I stay a little bit away from personal opinions because it's just one person. For me, I ask myself sometimes, would I care? Some people care very much. Some people are like, I will not watch a movie that has been produced by a machine because it doesn't have that human element. But if human elements are simply brainwaves and people are triggered by certain things and those elements are present, like, you get into the matrix levels of this stuff.
There are a bunch of metals. And the shirt I'm wearing is likely 100% machine. This shirt was not hand stitched. It was a machine built this. Is that even an appropriate analogy, or is that just like, no, Mark, it's not the same thing?
Well, and that's what humans do. We're tool builders and tool users. That's what sets us apart. Even if you go into fiction, right? Fiction, sometimes I enjoy like the fact that humans as a species, our special sauce is that we are adaptable and flexible and we build things to augment ourselves. We're weak little babies in our flesh pods.
Yeah.
So I can build starships.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is I like you, I love science fiction, love fantasy. I read a lot of it. Mostly is what I read when I'm not reading nonfiction. And this has occurred to me. It occurred to me when I was reading, I can't remember which one of the Game of Thrones, but it was like the one that came after the last book that got published. And it was like kind of an encyclopedic book. And I've done this also, like I just finished reading the Lord of the Rings trilogy again, first time since high school, the Silmarillion, I just reread or read for the first time. And I'm thinking like, I could just read a regular history book, right?
Yeah, especially the Silmarillion, right? Like that guy is building languages and histories and whatever. And it's like, it's great, but it's hard.
I guess what I'm just reflecting back is like, we are tool builders and the creativity that comes with that, right? I mean, a book like the Silmarillion exists for exactly the reasons you're talking about, this weird mesh of what humans can do that nobody else can do, and some level of creativity and the imagination that it takes. I think that's applicable whether you're doing fiction, nonfiction, business, or entertainment. Those elements are all part of the sauce that go into everything, making a movie or building a business like you are.
Well, let me ask you a question. We'll do the fun side first and the business side second. On the fun side, so on my Wednesdays, as I said, I don't work on Youbots. And so it frees up. Now I am using the tools to free up time to be more human. And sometimes that involves taking a day off and going and meeting people for lunch or doing whatever I do. And sometimes that means using my brain to explore AI in a fun way, which is what got me into this in the first place. And now I just happen to be running a business because it's working and it's needed and I'm good at it. But like, I am building a small retro video game right now, like a text-based RPG, and very simple. From one of my favorite games ever is called Road Warden, and it's just simple. One person coded and developed it, and it's just real low key, super simple, but brilliant. Just storytelling, just picture like stock, like non like static images and text, and choose your paths. And it's like a souped up choose your own adventure with things you got to,
Yeah.
manage. But anyway, for me, I can do everything except the game engine development. My skill set covers all the rest of it: image creation, story creation, architecture, hierarchy, management, whatever, all that. I just can't and won't find the time to learn the game engine code to put it into a game. But I have a cool story I want to tell.
Yeah.
And now with AI, on my days off, I'm spending an hour or two a day just like playing around. It can write the game engine code for me mostly. And I still got to learn some stuff, but like it can
Sure.
really help.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, like this idea that I've had that's a really cool story is coming to life, and I'm doing work, but it's only happening because the tech exists for me to be able to do that.
That's right.
Now, would you say that's cheating? Of course not, because it's one tool I'm using for one part of a thing that has a lot. But where does that line stop?
That's right.
Right.
And I think, well, I mean, look, I mean, if you were able to generate, if you were able to pop in with some prompt, like maybe a game that does all these things and it came out like fully fleshed out, I do think that that is a question of writing a book every day or not, or maybe the term is not writing or creating. Maybe the term is something else, which is not the same as
Yeah, it's
the
almost
work.
just ideating then. It's just like, hey, I have this
Yeah.
cool idea for a thing, and like the world, the AI world can produce. And it feels a little, even for me sometimes too. I think I'm more agnostic than most people are,
Yeah.
which is why I'm in this business, because it doesn't bother me, because, for thousands of years, we've been advancing things this way.
I don't know either. I mean, but I think maybe what's in my head right now is cheating's not the right, I don't think cheating's the right frame. I mean,
Yeah,
if
that's rough.
right, like, I mean, the IP stuff, like the fear of IP theft basically is rampant, and it's right. I mean, these guys have just consumed everything.
Yeah.
And we'll see if the government does anything about it. But I mean, copyright law unto itself is at risk in significant and in multiple ways, not just in entertainment, but in news and media, like our business. Like if we write an article and someone else figures out how to monetize it and we don't, right? Like how does that make any sense?
Right.
And so is that cheating? I mean, I think maybe cheating is part of it. And frankly, like
Yeah, it's loaded.
there's been lots of businesses that have started under nefarious or maybe not above board situations who've gone legit later. Like we proved it. We did it. I heard a story years ago about, this was circa 26. These guys had built a value prop that was like, basically type in a thing and something, and the machine will do something. And the reality was that behind the scenes, it was a bunch of people, like I think in Vietnam, doing the thing.
Oh, Mechanical Turk.
Yeah, well, Mechanical Turk was one of these guys were like an enterprise software company. I can't remember.
Oh, this is more recent. Okay.
More recent than that. But yes, Mechanical Turk is like, I just actually read that story in a book. Yes, it's Mechanical Turk. And so like at some point though, now we have AI. So, I mean, was it cheating? Yeah, kind of. It was certainly not truthful, not honest.
What matters how you position it though, too, right?
Yeah.
And to give people the option. Now, the IP copyright war is another thing wholly, because you're not giving people an option after you've consumed work, whatever, all that.
Right.
But then there's people who argue that the copyright thing is onerous as it is and all this stuff. Like there's arguments on all sides of that. But I think for me, framing it as, I mean, let's go to work for a second. Like the Youbots, that's an example, right? So it's like, for me, I know how, I'm an AI development professional. I can build these tools that help me be better at my job, which is kind of like, Playbook Broken terms. I was a high level, like a blue chip agency strategy guy in marketing, right? So, my day job, as you mentioned, was I was a social media strategist of record for like Applebee's and Cinnabon, kind of at that level. I did work in Hollywood for TV shows and things. And like, as a creative, that was my bread and butter. Then I got picked up to be CMO for like startups or tech places or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's the results that matter in business, much more so than the feelings and everything. In terms of marketing strategy, when I was getting into AI, I was doing freelance marketing strategy consulting. And I was building tools to make me better at my job on the front end, ideation and pain development and research, and turning that into productive stuff. And I'm like, holy, I could use this to take on 4 times more clients, which I don't want to do. Or I could just start selling this to the clients themselves and get half the pay and do almost none of the work, but let them do the work and do that more than 2 times, and I'm already winning. Like, great. And I'm doing less work and I'm helping more people do their own work. And so I started selling Nate bots. Like, I was like, hey, don't hire me. Like, you can hire Natebot, which can do, I always say it's like 80%. This is what my bots are. This is what AI in general does. I always say it's 80-10. These tools will help you get 80% of where you want to go in 10% of the time and 10% of the money. The rest is up to you. There should always be a human in the loop for now. We should always have people being responsible about how we use this and what we put out to the public and how we, all that stuff. But in a general work sense, you can get 80% where you want to go in 10%. So like I was selling a Nate bot that did that instead of hiring me to do this. So people started buying that. And then I just started transitioning into actually just building and selling custom bots for people.
Yeah.
Because that's what they needed for their business. And then, to transition to just set up how I got into Youbots, I had built a suite of like business bots with a marketing focus, but they could do a bunch of other things. And I had a suite of like a dozen of those. And I was like, why don't I just productize this into a suite, put all these bots that I'm getting good money for each single one. Why don't I just put them all into a suite and let people subscribe at a low price and their whole company can use it? But to get there, you have to solve the context problem, which I don't need to go into the weeds unless you want to.
Let me just, because you're an agency guy, or at least a part of your background is an agency. Is like, what from a playbook standpoint, what playbook rules are agencies still clinging to that just feel completely obsolete to you? I think that's a big part of why businesses are struggling with all this technology is it doesn't map directly. Like we now have these capabilities. The old playbook didn't allow us to do that. So, where are agencies kind of stumbling right now?
So I've talked to a couple agencies. Youbots has an agency. We're rolling out an agency platform too. So Youbots basically takes all of the power of the public LLMs that you're used to using, that people are using right now, but it wraps the entire context of your organization around it. So when you're using it, it's returning all of your, it's doing all the AI magic stuff, but returning it within the context of all your data, all your by name employees, all your contracts and your clients and your products, mapping all that into it, right? And anyone can use it at any time. So a 2-day-old intern can be producing director level marketing strategy work, for instance, at least on the front end. But so the tools exist. And if you've solved the context problem, which we have, which is the point of the platform, all of a sudden the tools exist to do massively better and faster of anything. So to your question of what agencies are missing that they're not seeing yet what I saw for myself a year ago. The value of what I bring is approaching zero as a strategist, as a marketing strategist. Like I said, 80% of what I do can be done by bots, and I've proven that. And like bots took my job or are taking my job. Yeah. And so I have to adapt. And for me, because I think systemically, I'm like, whoa, why don't I just compile all this stuff that we can do and put into here? Now I'll sell this thing that'll help everybody in like a fraction of the price that they would pay me or pay an agency.
Yeah.
So what agencies are missing is that one of the routes I could have gone with Youbots right from the start was just start lobbing flame grenades into the agency world and be like, I'm a one-man agency in a box for you, right? My very first client, I'm not setting this up to try to put people out of jobs. People will use it how they want. I prefer to use it for small businesses and nonprofits that give some away for free to nonprofits. I want them to be able to punch above their weight class without spending 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
Right. So my very first client, 2 weeks after she signed up, she said, hey, I just let go of my $5,000 a month agency. I just use Youbots now and we just do better work and more of it.
Yeah.
Right. So and I've talked to a couple of places that I've worked, some cohorts, and it's like, I don't think they know, or at least they don't want to talk about it, that the value that they bring needs to change quickly.
Yeah.
Because all that front end value, not all of it, but a lot of it is replaceable quickly. And so that's going to upend their entire environment. And what value do they bring beyond that? Do they use these tools to do the front end? Do they have to get ahead of the curve, which is like they would use Youbots to like just do a drop down and switch to any of their clients and output work? And they're like, hey, we're still giving you all the work that we were before.
Right.
With our professionalism and our experience behind it, but now with Nate's tools to do it faster and better. And now we take on more clients. Maybe that's a route. Or maybe they say, hey, we're going to give up on all the front end strategy stuff and we're just going to do very high touch experiential work that are, campaign specific
Yeah.
where it needs, maybe we're doing stuff in public and, we're doing this whole complex thing that bots aren't capable of yet. But that
Right.
front end thinking, that's changing quickly. And I don't know if they're secretly ahead of the game and figuring something out, or they're just kind of head in the sand.
I'm sure there are some agencies, especially SEO agencies, that are doing incredible work in helping their customers. But if we're talking about more general small biz agents, my assumption is that they're a little bit behind. But I spent 10 years in nonprofit. I would almost guarantee most nonprofits are pretty much nowhere, which is just kind of terrifying.
I am actively trying to help nonprofits. I have a background of 15 years of philanthropy work and building huge systems of giving back. My very first, I had the choice to do Tailmaker or Youbots, and I sold Tailmaker for beer money just so that I could do Youbots.
Yeah.
And Tailmaker was more ahead and more fun, like people wanted to fund it. But I would rather do a small business product like this that helps the little guys. My family has a small business. I'm a solopreneur. I've been in nonprofit world and philanthropy world forever. Like, I want something that can let the little guys do big things.
Yeah.
Which is, and the first people I talked to were nonprofits, and good Lord, I couldn't get them to do anything. Like, they're so risk averse.
Yeah. I spent 10 years in big health charities, and it's very difficult. I love you used the phrase earlier, punch above your weight class. It's a phrase I've used about third door media multiple times, because there is something really energizing, powerful, exciting, and emotional about a small business that is lifting, 10x their weight, a small agency that can land big clients. And I think these tools are a further short term, probably, but certainly an advantage in the short term, maybe in a substantial way, if used, properly, is my guess.
Well, used properly and by the right type of people. So your personhood still matters. Your experience very much matters. All this stuff matters. Like, am I able to do with my tools better than some random person off the street? Of course, in my realm, in marketing, for sure. But we have a client who's in food sustainability, big career in that, and we have a white label product where if you have bots and custom GPTs that you've built to help you in your business, we can white label the brains of our platform. So you can put your bots in our platform, call it your own thing, and sell it out to your clients or use it internally to help you. And all of a sudden it takes on all the brains and context of our thing for each of your orgs. Perfect. There's no way that I would be able to better use those bots than that client can to do food sustainability and climate practices and agriculture, whatever.
Yeah.
So for me personally, Nate, in terms of giving back, I wanted to democratize giving back so that everybody could do a one-to-one meaningful difference in their world, whatever that meant to them. And I would tell a meta story and make it big and newsworthy, but everyone would activate in their own way, in their own world, and feel that intrinsic value. Same, my business philosophy is the same. I want to democratize access to AI. And the way I do that is fixing the contextual problem so everyone can take the power of AI and wrap it into their organization or their solopreneurship or whatever it is. So all of a sudden that massive power is working for them, right? And everybody gets access to the power without having to understand AI or prompt engineering or whatever. Your job is to just be great in your area and do what you do, but with better power tools.
Yeah, the democratizing thing is interesting. The internet itself, commercialized the internet, was a democratizing force, even through the hype cycles of things like, let's say, blockchain. We've kind of like democratize this, democratize that. I do think that your philosophy and your perspective here of building a platform that kind of removes the hard parts basically, and allows that domain expertise to run free. I know you and I set up third door media as an example so I can understand what you're doing. And that context is really, really important. It is very different than going to ChatGPT cold and trying to figure out how to use, a bot on its own. So I think you're onto something, at least in that layer. I mean, the rest of the stuff is also really cool, but just that one piece is probably the key.
That's my lane, right? And I still use ChatGPT and Claude all the time when it doesn't have anything to do with my job or my org. But if I have to do something for Youbots, I'm going to start there what I see is in 2020, and we knew this would be the case, which is why I started this business beginning of this year, because I knew 2025 was going to be the year where people are going to not just hear AI and be like, what is that? But be like, I know what it is and how do I make that better for me in my life or my business or my org or whatever. Everyone these days, I think the stats are something like 80% of people in just a generic job of any kind are going to ChatGPT to use it for their job, but they're just doing it poorly. Like they're doing it with no context or the wrong context or the wrong prompt. There is a lane there. Playbook got broken day, but now if I want to survive and make my living in this world still, what I'm doing is democratizing, removing all that instability from that first system and letting people plug into a way that lets them do the thing they want to do, but better and the right way. Right. And that's the lane I want to stay in. And so for me, like I focus on that and I feel like I'm missing out on a bunch of stuff. But at the same time, for me, my goal is to two things in parallel: make a living for myself and not die and, eat sandwiches and be happy, and also help small businesses or nonprofits or solopreneurs like me and my family and my friends to be able to succeed in a world that is increasingly cutthroat as well. And so for me, that's my lane, and I'm happy to play in that for as long as it takes.
So I am personally obsessed with, my latest obsession is understanding how high performers like yourself push themselves to the next level. So if you can think of one, if you can't, that's okay too. But think of a time when you had to force yourself to evolve personally or professionally. Kind of give me the breakdown and what's coming to you. And then what process did you use to sort of get that wall?
We've talked enough about the business side. And in fact, we've talked about me evolving from someone who's a marketing strategist for agencies or startups to solopreneur to consultant. I'll go a little more personal on this one. When I was 29, I think, I had 3 young kids, and I was good at my job, and I was just starting to figure out what I wanna do on the side, like, in the world for real. I had a job, I was a web director for a $500,000,000 company here in Milwaukee, and I was doing fine, but I was like, what do I want to do to make this world a better place? And for me, I'm interested in big ideas, right? That's why I do what I do. And I do a ton of different things. And I fail a lot, but I succeed a lot too. And for me, it was change the world. And what does that mean though? Not pie in the sky. What does that mean on a day to day, boots on the ground basis? Not like this random idea, theory. And I started a little website, a little blog, personal blog called It Starts With Us. And I was just like telling stories and interviewing people about who are giving back in unique ways, not just giving a check to charity or whatever. Within a few months, I had hit the homepage of Dig and read it a couple times. I had 30,000 readers. And I did that for a few more months. And I was like, this is great, but what are we doing again? Like these people are just consuming content. As a content marketer, which is my job, I am so sick of content marketing, right? And people just consuming content, like get out there and do something. And I'm talking to myself too, right? And so for me, I said, okay, look, guys, I have this big audience of people, but you guys are all just consuming content I'm producing, which is fine. But what are we actually doing about it? And so I'm starting a new group called It Starts With Us. But anyway, I said on Fridays, I'm going to assign us all a 15-minute mission that includes me. And I was never a volunteer guy or whatever, but I was like, this is the evolving you're talking about. I want to be a better person. I want to set a good example for my kids, and I want to do something that matters. So on Fridays, I'm going to send out an email. You can join the email list here. I got 18 people to join it on the first, but because it was an action team. If you
Right.
join this, what I'm expecting of you is that on Friday, I'm going to assign a mission and I'm going to do it for the week and you're going to do it for the week, but it's going to take 15 minutes or less. And then I built the discussion forum and stuff back in the day. This is back in the day in 09, 2009. I'm going to share it every week. I'm going to do it every single week. I did that for a couple of years. And the missions, though, here's where my creativity and marketing strategy comes into play. The missions are open-ended. Like UGC, it's like user-generated content, right? So it's like a mission can be as simple as 2 words: fix it. Okay. So what does that mean to you? That could mean your child's broken toy. It could mean your coworker's mistake. Maybe you haven't talked to your brother in a few years. Pick up the phone, fix it. Right. So from that little beginning, and I was like, I'm the biggest introvert there is. And so it wasn't a question of wanting to do good. It was a question of wanting to be in the public and deal with people. That's
Yeah.
hard for me. But I made myself do it. And every week it got a little bit easier and with practice. What was amazing was that changed my life. That little blog about making a difference and 15 minutes a week, that thing rapidly turned into, over a few months. Well, first month it was 1,000 people. Second month it was another 1,500 on top of that, then another 5. It got to be 10,000 active people, 20,000 over the course of a couple of years once I gave it to someone else too. But like we had thousands and thousands of people doing this every single week, myself included. But the beauty of it is they made a difference for themselves in their own lives. And maybe it's the extrinsic value of like, oh, I'm doing this because my social media crew is or my team is or whatever. But when they see the small personal differences they can make out in their world, they just come back and do it and they talk about it and they share it. What's ironic is that as a marketing guy, my entire career, I was already in marketing then, but like I got recruited by agencies from that work because, and I got called out to Google headquarters. That's where I met my philanthropy co-founder. He was there for a different meeting and they were asked, we had Googlers on my philanthropy team on this It Starts With Us team. And they wanted to talk about managing their 20,000 employees at the time, charitable giving through a project or platform like mine. And then I got recruited by all these agencies and like, can you build these communities or these big campaigns and scenarios for us? And I'm like, okay, sure. So that became my job. And so I just got bigger and bigger deals and became that guy. But at the side, I still was maintaining 30 hours a week of doing philanthropy work for free for
Wow.
probably 5 to 7 years.
Wow.
It was tough, but we did so much good. We helped so many people. And to your question of evolving, it's the thing I'm most proud of in my life, besides raising great kids, is the fact that I went from, and I'm still a huge introvert, but I am now someone who can go out into public and make a difference and help people in meaningful ways beyond just writing checks. And I've enabled hundreds of thousands of touch points and millions of lives touched
Yeah.
and let other people find out that they can be their best selves too. And again, kind of almost full circle with Youbots. My mission when I build something is to enable others to be their best version of themselves, whatever that
Yeah.
means, whether that's in business or philanthropy or whatever. I build a structure, I build a story, and I let people execute on that in easy ways to let them be the best they can be. So I'm proud of myself.
Yeah. You should, it's an epic story. And I think where that intrinsic value comes from, it's a mystery, right? Like you're the way you are because of the way you are, the universe and genes and all this stuff. And that alchemy ends up manifesting itself in different ways. And then each of us, as we mature, go through this process where we put things together in our minds and you make decisions. You don't know how things are going to work out, but at some point you decided, I'm going to do this. And then you didn't quit. You forced yourself to keep going because it was
Yeah.
coming from inside you, which again, like that's what's so interesting to me because all of us are a little bit different. Other people might be like, there's nothing intrinsic in me. I don't feel these things, but I still find other ways to motivate and push myself through to that next level. And again, when you start with someone who's very successful like you are, it's like, how'd you go from A to B? So thanks for sharing that story. That was kind of amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, man, this has been fun. I will say the last thing I'll say on that is I think all people, writ large, humans in general, they want to make meaning. They want to give back. They want to do good. They want to be good. We're so scattered and so stressed and so concerned about our lives that we don't often make that space to do that. And there aren't easy ways to do it. And for me, when I look out at the world, the two things I think impact this a little bit. One is my personal nature of optimizing things and making things easier and better. And one is my Christian faith is just like love, grace, mercy, like be the change you want to see in the world. It's not proselytizing or hitting people. It's just like be the best human that I can be. And for me, when I see those two things combined, it's like I can help others by helping them help themselves and help them help others because I can build systems and they can't. I can tell stories and they can't. So I can make something that can go big. And that can be the way I give back because I'm an amplifier.
Yep.
And so building systems is a way for me to do good, valuable work that works for me in both my mental side and my virtual human side.
I love that. I'm going through some of that myself right now, which is for another time and another podcast.
I will have more talks. This is
Yeah, Nate, thank you so much for breaking it down. It was epic. I'm just looking at my notes and I was like kind of scratched without looking too far away from the screen. We talked about augmentation versus replaceable. We talked about agencies. We talked about punching above your weight class. We talked about changing the world and finding meaning. And I thought it was awesome. Tell everyone where they can, this is your chance, be an extrovert, plug away. Where can they find Youbots? Where can they find you? How do they engage?
you can check out Youbots at Youbots.ai and you can find me on LinkedIn or just search for my name and search for Nate St. Pierre Abraham Lincoln hoax. You'll have some fun.
We'll have to do that. For everyone watching or listening, if this conversation made you rethink the role of AI in your business or life, share it, tag us, keep us in the conversation, push it forward. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe to Playbook Broken on YouTube, all the audio channels at martech.org, which is where our home is. Thank you all for listening and watching.